Imagine a world where one man, through sheer force of will and strategic genius, forged a powerful empire from scattered tribes. A man whose name echoed across the plains of southern Africa, striking fear into his enemies and inspiring unwavering loyalty in his followers. This is the story of Shaka Zulu, the military innovator whose legacy was so profound, so revolutionary, that colonial powers tried for centuries to distort it, to diminish it, to erase it from the pages of history. But why? What was it about this African king that they found so threatening? Let's uncover the truth. Before Shaka, warfare in southern Africa was often ritualistic, more about posturing and demonstrating strength than outright conquest. Fights were typically settled with a few thrown spears and minimal casualties. It was a system that maintained a delicate balance of power among hundreds of small Nguni-speaking clans. But Shaka saw a different path. He wasn't content with symbolic victories. He envisioned total domination and the unification of his people into a single, formidable nation. Born around 1787, Shaka's early life was marked by hardship. As the illegitimate son of a minor chief, he and his mother, Nandi, were outcasts, forced to wander and seek refuge among different clans. This experience didn't break him, it forged him. It instilled in him a relentless drive to prove his worth and a deep understanding of the clan politics that he would later exploit and dismantle. His fortunes changed when he was conscripted into the army of Dingiswayo, the powerful chief of the Mthethwa paramountcy. Here, Shaka's brilliance as a warrior and a leader quickly became apparent. He wasn't just brave. He was a thinker, constantly analyzing the weaknesses of traditional warfare. This is where Shaka's first revolution began. He looked at the standard weapon of the day, the long, flimsy throwing spear, the assegai, and saw its limitations. It was a one-shot weapon. Once thrown, a warrior was left vulnerable. So, Shaka invented a new weapon, the ikawa. It was a short, broad-bladed stabbing spear, named for the sound it made as it was withdrawn from an enemy's body. This wasn't a throwing weapon. It was for close quarters, visceral combat. To use it, a warrior had to get face-to-face with his opponent, a terrifying prospect that required immense discipline and courage. But a new weapon was useless without a new way to fight, and so, Shaka introduced his most famous innovation, the buffalo horns formation, or the Impi Yezimpondo Zenkamo. Picture this: the Zulu army, the Impi, was arranged like the head of a buffalo. The central, largest group was the chest or Isafuba. Their job was to engage the enemy head-on and pin them in place. Flanking the chest were two horns, the Izimpondo. These were younger, faster warriors who would swing out wide, encircling the enemy, cutting off their escape. Finally, a reserve force, the loins, sat behind the main body, ready to be deployed wherever needed or to exploit a breakthrough. It was a simple, yet devastatingly effective tactic that combined shock, encirclement, and overwhelming force. To make this formation work, Shaka needed a new kind of soldier. He abandoned the traditional part-time militias and created a standing, professional army. Young men from all over the kingdom were conscripted into age-based regiments called Amabutho. They lived in dedicated military barracks, or Amakonda, where they trained relentlessly. They were forbidden from marrying until their service was complete, ensuring their total focus and loyalty were to Shaka and the state. This system didn't just create an unmatched fighting force. It shattered old clan loyalties and forged a new, unified Zulu identity. Whether you were born a Kumalo, a Quabe, or a Ndwandu, once you were in the Impi, you were first and foremost a Zulu. When Dingiswayo died, Shaka seized his moment. Through cunning politics and ruthless force, he took control of the Mthethwa and began a campaign of conquest that would forever change the map of southern Africa. One by one, rival clans were either absorbed into his growing empire or crushed. This period of intense warfare and mass migration became known as the Mafeking, or the crushing. While its exact causes are debated by historians, There's no doubt that Shaka's military machine was a primary engine of this transformation. Within a decade, he had consolidated hundreds of disparate chiefdoms into the Zulu kingdom, a centralized superpower that controlled a vast territory. So, if Shaka was such a brilliant nation builder and military strategist, why is his legacy so often painted in a negative light? The answer lies with the people who wrote the history books, European colonists. When British traders and settlers first encountered the Zulu kingdom, they were stunned. Here, in what they considered a dark continent, was a highly organized, disciplined society with a military that could rival their own. This reality flew in the face of their colonial narratives of African inferiority. It was a direct threat to their ambitions. To justify their eventual conquest, they needed to demonize Shaka. They portrayed him not as a strategic genius, but as a bloodthirsty, irrational tyrant. They exaggerated his cruelty, focusing on stories of mass executions while conveniently ignoring the brutal realities of European empire building happening at the same time. They painted the Mafeking not as a complex period of state formation, but as a senseless black-on-black slaughter caused by Shaka's supposed madness. This narrative served a clear purpose. It made the Zulu people seem savage and incapable of self-rule, thus making colonial intervention seem like a moral necessity, a civilizing mission. Think about it. We celebrate Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, and Napoleon as military geniuses, despite the fact that their conquest resulted in the deaths of millions. Their violence is often framed as a necessary cost of empire building. Yet, when an African leader like Shaka does the same, unifying his people and expanding his territory through military might, he is labeled a savage. This double standard is a classic tool of colonial propaganda designed to erase the achievements of non-European peoples and legitimize their subjugation. Even the Zulu victory at Isandlwana in 1879, where they inflicted one of the most humiliating defeats on the British Army in its history, was spun. It was portrayed as a fluke, a result of savage numbers overwhelming civilized technology, rather than the brilliant execution of Shaka's tactical doctrines, which were still being used decades after his death. The British couldn't accept that they had been out-generaled by the very people they deemed inferior. Shaka's reign came to an end in 1828 when he was assassinated by his half-brothers, but his legacy was cemented. He left behind a powerful, unified Zulu nation that would resist colonial encroachment for another half-century. He created a military system so effective that it took the full might of the British Empire to finally break it. Today, historians are working to reclaim Shaka's story from the grip of colonial propaganda. They are looking beyond the biased accounts of early European visitors and exploring Zulu oral traditions to build a more nuanced and accurate picture of the man. What emerges is not a simple villain or a perfect hero, but a complex and brilliant leader, a visionary who reshaped his world through intelligence, ambition, and an iron will. Shaka Zulu was not a mindless despot. He was the architect of a nation, an African genius whose true story the world tried and failed to erase. His legacy, a powerful reminder of the great empires and brilliant leaders that flourished in Africa long before Europeans arrived, a history that deserves to be told, remembered, and celebrated. Thanks for watching. If you want to uncover more hidden histories and challenge old narratives, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.